On the surface, Zeus has the best deal in all of mythology. King of the gods, master of the sky. He sits on a golden throne and throws lightning bolts at problems until they go away. So why was he terrified almost every single day of his reign? Because underneath the power, Zeus was a trauma survivor, running from a prophecy, managing a family that once tied him up in his sleep, and desperately trying to hold on to a throne he was never supposed to lose, just like his father before him. His father was Cronus, ruler of the Titans and one of mythology's most paranoid figures. A prophecy warned him that one of his children would overthrow him, the same way he'd overthrown his own father Uranus. His solution was brutal and simple. Swallow every baby his wife Rhea gave birth to. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Poseidon, Hades, consumed one by one before they could become a threat. When Zeus was born, Rhea had finally had enough. She smuggled him to a hidden cave in Crete, handed Cronus a rock wrapped in swaddling cloth, and he swallowed it without even looking. Zeus grew up in hiding, raised by nymphs and a divine goat named Amalthea, always knowing that discovery meant being swallowed alive. When he finally came back as an adult, he tricked Cronus into drinking an emetic that made him vomit up all 5 siblings, somehow still alive. Mythology works how it wants, and then led a 10-year war against the Titans called the Titanomachy. 10 years of open war against ancient, entrenched power. He won because he was smarter and more strategic, but it was never a sure thing. He was an underdog who clawed his way to the top. That context matters for everything that follows. After taking the throne, Zeus learned that he too would be overthrown by a son greater than his father. The same curse, the same cycle. And unlike Cronus, Zeus was self-aware enough to know exactly what it had done to his father, which somehow made it worse. Every powerful son he fathered became a quiet source of dread. Is this the one? It came to a head with the sea nymph Thetis. She was extraordinarily beautiful and powerful, and both Zeus and his brother Poseidon were actively pursuing her. Then the prophecy surfaced. Thetis' son would be mightier than his father. Both gods dropped their pursuit immediately. She was hurriedly arranged to marry a mortal king named Peleus. Her son turned out to be Achilles, the greatest warrior of the Trojan War, a man who outshone every mortal around him. Greater than his mortal father, yes, but not a threat to Olympus. Zeus had dodged the prophecy, but only because he found out in time. From the outside, Olympus looked like paradise. From the inside, it was an exhausting negotiation that never ended. His marriage to Hera was one of mythology's most dysfunctional relationships. Hera had been swallowed as an infant by her own father, then married Zeus partly out of obligation, then spent eternity watching him pursue other women across the mortal world. Her anger was completely rational. She just couldn't aim it directly at Zeus, so she aimed it at his children and lovers instead, which created an entirely separate set of problems for him. Hera, Poseidon, and Athena, his wife, his brother, and his own daughter, conspired together to overthrow him. They waited until he was asleep and bound him. The king of the god, tied up, helpless, by his own family. He was only freed because the sea nymph Thetis, yes, the same one, fetched the 100-handed giant Ares. The 3 fates, the Moirai, wove the destiny of gods and mortals alike, and not even Zeus could simply override them. He existed inside a system with rules bigger than himself. The clearest moment of this comes during the Trojan War. Zeus watches it coming and genuinely considers intervening. He's king of the gods. Surely he can just not let his son die. Hera stops him cold. She reminds him, if you pull your son from fate, every god with a favorite mortal will demand the same. Sarpedon has to die, and Zeus, king of the gods, wielder of lightning, ruler of Olympus, sits on his throne and watches his son fall. The Greeks understood something important here. Supreme power and true freedom are not the same thing. He was a child who grew up hunted by his own father. He fought a decade-long war just to exist. He took a throne that came with a prophecy promising it would eventually be taken from him. He ruled a family that conspired against him, a wife who resented him, and brothers who never fully respected his authority. He wasn't a tyrant for the fun of it. He was a survivor who built a kingdom on top of his own fear and spent eternity trying to keep it from collapsing the same way his fathers would, which honestly makes him one of the most human figures in all of Greek mythology. Not because he was good, but because the thing driving him, the desperate need to hold on to what he'd fought so hard to build, is something most of us understand. That's Zeus, powerful, paranoid, and never quite free.